Hey Todd, how are you?
Good. How you doing
I'm
today?
doing all right, man. So it is a bummer that McFarlane lost a DC license, and collectors are kind of weird about that. But looking here at Toyfair, you still have so much going on for the DC. You have so much going on for your sports. You have so much going on for resin, big box collectibles. I mean, look at the Batwing over there. Look at those statues and everything like that. So 2025. What are you most excited about?
Wow. I mean, you're seeing. It's interesting because you're asking me to pick my favorite child, right? And so each one of the brands that we do, I always assume that there's somebody who's equally passionate for each one of them, right? I could find the number one fan for each one of these, and people would go, no, this is my favorite. This is my favorite. So I usually don't sort of pick winners and losers, whatever. My goal for all of them is to say, are we doing the right characters? Are we doing a quality product, and are we pricing it at a fair price? And are we getting it in places where people even know that it exists, right? Because if people don't know your product is around, it's hard for them to buy it, right? So we have to promote all of it. The bigger goal for me isn't like, oh man, there's my favorite thing over there. Although if you're asking like Geeky Todd,
Yeah.
was I a Godzilla and King Kong kid when I was a little guy? Yeah, right. So there are some favorites to me in Batman '66 stuff, right? I mean,
Yeah.
because again, of my age,
Of course.
right? I was an Adam West guy. So there are things that sort of speak to an old man Todd. A lot more than some of the newer, hipper stuff that my kids are going, oh man, Dad, I didn't know you were making that. And it's like, oh, okay. And it's like, yeah, this is one of my favorites. I don't even sort of know that about my own kids. So for me, it's usually sort of a little bit of the retro stuff is probably the stuff that if I had to sort of say, hey, I could only go home and put in my own collection, I would take the stuff that, as you can imagine, that goes, oh yeah, it says he's an old man, right?
Right. But you're also expanding like the page puncher lines, and I feel like that's a good again, big synergy thing. You have the figures in the comics that they're featured in. Who do we have lined up? Because you have the Atom Smasher, and then you have the Supergirl from Tom King's, and for Supergirl of tomorrow.
Yeah, and so if you go over there, I don't know if you've been able to take the picture stuff like that. The thing that's cool too is it comes with the wire cape on her, right?
Nice.
And if you go and take a look at it, the thing that we're pretty proud of that we figured out is not only does it sort of hold the cape up, but it also holds the cape up, and you can sort of crunch it and twist it and do like you can really animate the cape with it, right? So we've got it. If you go over there, if you take a look at like the cover, and then you take a look at what we did with the wire cape, we can almost simulate it. We can almost simulate that
It
drawing.
looked like it was getting up there.
Yeah, it's
looked
pretty
like it was getting up there.
it's pretty close for not having to sculpt it, because it's historically wire capes have been sort of like triangle and a little bit of bend, and that they can hold themselves up, right? But we've found a process now that like you can literally put it into sort of twist. To me, and because then it becomes real.
Yeah.
And then you can put it in a twist, and as soon as you let go, it stays. It doesn't want to go with a memory and go back to it. So.
Well, upgrading like a lot of those figures and everything from how, even 6 years ago when you got the license and like those first heavy plastic capes, you had the first appearance Batman, you had the Fleischer Batman, and all those have nice wired capes, and they look so good. The upscale of what you guys did on that was just so good. Like, it's perfect.
Well, here's the thing, and it took us a while because people go, why didn't you do it sooner? The reason we had to do it is because
it's a painstaking process.
No. Wire is finicky. So usually two things happen. The wire is thin, and it won't hold the cloth. And so there's a droop, right? I've seen those toys.
Yeah.
And then the other, or if you bend it, it starts to snap. The other piece is that you then put a thick enough wire in there, and then what happens is aesthetically, it doesn't look good because it looks like you got like big tubes on the case.
Yeah.
And they're too heavy, so when you put it off to the side, right, then it wants to droop because of the wire. So how do you find a wire? We experiment a lot. How do you find a wire that basically will hold itself and you can do this and bend it and bend it, and
yeah.
it won't be break and it's not fragile.
So then you're also getting into like the retro line for the superpowers and then like the super friends as well. I mean, you grew up with that to an extent.
Yeah. That was coming just sort of when I was in college, going, okay, here. It's really interesting, like when you talk to anybody and you go like, what are your geek things? And you can almost sort of tell like their age by what they.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you say like the easy answer is, and you can do it with like what's your favorite Batmobile? You can usually tell, but it used to be like who for Star Trek, who's your captain, right? And then you could tell age, almost by their answer, right? And I think that toys and comic books and stuff like that are the same way, that you just go. So this one was the superpowers were just a little bit on the edge of where I was, because I started having kids and stuff like that, and I'm like, oh man, and so you have to become an adult, and so there's usually a few years in between where everybody sort of gets busy with life, but then we come back, and then we're like, oh man, that was the stuff that I grew up with as a kid. So.
I mean, then you're also going to be. I mean, we can't put it in now, but just beyond the horizon here is this Mortal Kombat display, and it looks so good. We got a little sneak peek at the 2-pack, and then Sub-Zero, Melina, and then Liu Kang. I mean, and Ed. So I mean, that sort of again seems like a really relationship that makes sense. So, what are you excited about for Mortal Kombat collectors? Because you had your own Mortal Kombat stuff for like the later games. But now you go back to the classics.
Well, you just said the word, right? Look, every brand, I don't care where it's at, had a start. And the start of every big brand, that was like the classic pieces that began all of it, right? So whenever we do get a license, I'm always asking, is there any way we can go back in the library? Because I understand you're pushing your new event here and you've got your new items here, but the brand began with these 8-10 characters, sometimes 2 or 3 characters over here. It would be really cool if we could go back and get into the core that basically began it all, right? Look at it. On my part, I do Spawn comic books. In 20 years from now, maybe 3, 5, 10, 20 of the most popular characters in Spawn universe will not be Spawn. People will move on from him and go, no, he's like fuddy-duddy. I like these cooler ones. But there still will always be the knowledge of that Spawn was the guy, right? So no matter what, there's always going to be a small portion of people that go, oh man, I remember the beginning. So for Mortal Kombat, it's like we get to go to the beginning. That's fun.
Okay. And then what are we looking for 2026? What's like a really good personal goal for you? Since you're getting, you lost DC, but what is like a good catch-all for you for like a real big catch for 2026 to get?
We have a couple that we're working on right now, and then a couple of them we're talking about actually doing master toy license. Okay. Not just the figures, right? Not just the figures. So if we get one or both of those, then it'd be pretty interesting. Because we'll have to then expand into items that people traditionally might not think of for McFarlane toys. We've probably done all of them at some point in the history of my company. I think people just forget sometimes, right? We have done plush, and we've done construction, and we've done keychains, and we've done buttons, and we've done shirts and hats. Like we've done everything, right? We've done it before. It's just we've never done it in one corner with one brand at one time. So that'd be a unique challenge for us to have if we end up getting those. We'll know probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Well, thank you so much, and I hope you have a good rest of your Toyfair match.
Sure. All right.